Hello there, fellow cultists. This is DM Nell, and I'm coming to you with another episode. And this time I am going to be talking to you about what I consider to be the Demon Lord Essentials. So, people that are just getting into Shadow the Demon Lord may become overwhelmed with the amount of material that's available. Going to Drive-Thru RPG helps because all that stuff is in one place, but there's so much of it that you may be paralyzed, not knowing, what to purchase, where to start, and basically what are the things that you really need just to get a campaign going and not get overwhelmed by the amount of options available to you. So this video hopefully will help new GMs that are just getting into this game narrow their search for what I consider at least to be the essentials. Now, other people may consider other products to be more essential than what I'm choosing, but this is just my opinion. So you can feel free to read through all of the stuff that's available in Drive-Thru RPG and make up your own mind. But I'm just here to kind of give you one GM's perspective on what I consider to be Shadow the Demon Lord Essential. So, without further ado, let's go ahead and start. Now, the first obvious choice is the core rulebook. The Shadow the Demon Lord core rulebook is really the only thing you need to run a campaign in Shadow the Demon Lord. It is not only a rule book, but it also is a bestiary. And it contains everything you need to run the game. It has a GM section. It has a world section. It's pretty complete in and of itself. So this right here is really the only thing you need to get started in the game. Now, beyond that, if you are interested in expanding your game beyond what's available in the core rulebook, which you will be shortly after you start reading through it and understanding that there's a hell of a lot more out there, the next thing I would recommend is getting the Demon Lord's Companion. The Demon Lord's Companion is a book that actually contains material that was originally written or designed to be in the core rulebook, but it just didn't make the cut simply because of the space limitations. So the Demon Lord's Companion has a lot of additional information in it, a lot of additional rules. In fact, just to kind of thumb through it real quickly, it has two additional ancestries, the Fawn and the Halfling. Fawn is kind of like a satyr type of creature. So half person, half goat on the bottom part, anyway. And then the halfling is your typical fantasy halfling. The book also has additional rules. So this book actually starts off with a set of rules called Story Complications that allows you to add a complication to your character. So this would be part of your character's backstory, and you can add things such as your character has an addiction, your character's cursed, your character's doomed, your character's haunted, mad, maimed, plagued, or possessed. So these again are things that just add flavor to your character. They make your character a little bit more difficult and challenging to run because all of these are pretty much negative features to your characters. None of them actually give you something that makes your character more powerful, but it definitely makes your character more interesting. Okay, so what else is in this book? You also have new expert paths, the Elementalist, the Mountebank, the Mystic, the Psychic, the Sage, Shaman, Swashbuckler, the Warden, And that's it for the expert paths. And then you have additional master paths, which includes the alchemist, the blackguard, the corsair, the demonologist, the entropist, martial artist, medium, mindbender, psychokinetic, the reaver, the sapper, seeker, and that appears to be it. So it really expands the already numerous expert and master paths that are in the core rulebook by adding all those additional ones. It expands the equipment section by adding alchemical items, and you'll get things such as dragonfire, which is pretty cool, bottled smoke, and things like that, superior glue. You also have forbidden items. Now, forbidden magic in the core rulebook highlights magic that just is dangerous to work with because it deals with forces that man wasn't meant to deal with, and devastating. So forbidden items follows that same concept, and there are a number of forbidden items listed in this book as well that just you plop into your players. Treasure that they find and give them a nice little surprise when they come across it. Here's a one. If you can see that, but that's an example of one of the forbidden items, which is a revenant head, and basically it's a head in a jar that you can talk to, and it has knowledge, and you can ask questions and get information from it. Okay, marvels of engineering. This includes things like a blunderbuss, a bomb, pocket watch, smoke bombs, things like that. There are additional potions in here. Again, this is more. This adds to the potions that are already available in the core rulebook. And then there are vehicles. Now, vehicles is one thing that I believe is missing from the core rulebook. So this is a good, very nice addition to have. It has the statistics for a number of common vehicles that you would find in an RPG, such as a cart, a wagon, a sailing ship, a riverboat, or barge. But it also has things like a locomotive engine, because that exists in the Shadow of the Demon Lord world, and airships, which also exist. In the magic section of this book, there are new traditions, six of them to be exact, three intellect traditions, and then the three will-based traditions. The intellect traditions include alchemy, demonology, and telepathy, and then the will-based traditions include death, spiritualism, and telekinesis. So that expands the already numerous traditions that are found in the core rulebook. And then there's a section on incantations, which gives you more incantations again, adding to what's in the core rulebook. And then there's the Game Master Tool section, which talks about things such as magical places, such as a haunted house or a haunted place. There's additional relics that are in here. And then, of course, there's the bestiary, which gives you a bunch more new monsters. Let me see here. One of my favorites might be, well, of course, there's a specter. You gotta respect that. Yeah, I just did that. And an arachne, a bestia, a brownie, centaur. So a mog, slime brute, which looks a hell of a lot like the man thing. Anyway, this is definitely an essential. So that would be probably the second book you would pick up. Now, the third book I would recommend may be a surprise to a lot of people, but to me it's essential because it really encompasses the essence of what a Shadow of the Demon Lord campaign strives for or strives towards. And that is, well, let me pull it up here in DriveThruRPG. All right, so this is my number 3 pick, and this is Hunger in the Void. Get that up there. All right, so Hunger in the Void is a book that explains in greater detail the different types of campaigns that can be run in Shadow of the Demon Lord. And this is touched upon in the core rulebook, but again, this expands it and gives suggestions on how you can run each one of these campaigns by um, by tier. So there's 4 different tiers in a Shadow of the Demon Lord campaign. There's a starting, novice, expert, and the master tier. And this gives you information on how you can take each one of these campaign ideas, and which are called shadows of the Demon Lord, and how you can actually build a campaign around it. So, for example, Black Sun is the first one that's listed here, and it takes the concept of um, when the Demon Lord shadow falls over the sun, it turns the disc black and plunges the world into an unending penumbra. Yeah, there you go, penumbra. The demonic radiance that shines through the haze warms Earth, causing each day to grow hotter than the last until the world becomes a lifeless cinder. So it talks about what you can do in the starting section of the campaign to kind of kick things off. An unexpected eclipse leaves astronomers baffled and filled with worry when it doesn't end. The illumination from the darkened sun casts everything in shadows. Then you go to the novice path, which talks about unnatural heat. Not long after the black sun appears, temperatures begin to climb. Venturing outside during midday becomes an act of courage. Worse, the strange light blights crops and sickens animals. During the hottest times of the day, characters traveling in the open are subject to the effects of exposure, which is detailed in the Shadow of the Demon Lord core rulebook, page 201. Then it talks about the expert path, the world burns. I'm not going to read all that. And then it goes into horrid radiation, which is the master path, or the master tier. And it talks about how you can kind of wrap things up for that type of campaign. So it talks about that. For each one of the shadows that are listed in the Shadow of the Demon Lord. But I kind of skipped ahead a little bit because the book starts with information about the void, which is really where all things that are bad come from. The void is where the Demon Lord and his demons exist, and is trying to suck all of the multiverse back into. And so this kind of talks about the void. It talks about void incursions. It talks about what dark magic means. It discusses a lot of different things that pertain to the void, and it really just expands on what the void is and what it should represent in your campaign. All right, let's see what else this book has. This book is just so full of goodness, bad goodness, or good badness. It's just amazing how much information is in here. So the next section talks about the servants of the void. So this expands on the various cults that are found in the campaign world. So it talks about the Brotherhood of Shadows, which is one of the big cults, probably one of the primary cults of the setting. And it details the type of person that actually joins the cult. It talks about the cult's goals, and it actually stats out a couple of different members of the cult, so that you can plop those into your campaign and use them as bad guys. Then there's the Knights of the One True God, which is an extreme sect that grew out of the cult of the New God. Not going to go through all that. And let's see, the Mother's Children is another one. And the mother is the mother of monsters, incidentally. Philosophers of the Glistening Prince, Reavers of the Skull King, Seekers of the Wandering Star, Sisters of the Blue Hand, which is a cult that I'm using in my current Shadow of the Demon Lord campaign. Let's see, who else? Oh, okay, I think that's it. Ends with the Sisters of the Blue Hand. And then it goes into a section talking about if you are a player character running a priest, how you can actually be a priest of the Demon Lord. And it gives you a way to roll up a character that actually venerates the Demon Lord. And that would be a batshit crazy character to play. This book also has spells in it. So these are spells that are kind of based around the void and demonic magic and things like that. These are a lot of these are things that are spells that would be invoked by the various cults. In fact, a lot of the spells actually have the cult's name in it, like invoke the Skull King, invoke the Wandering Star, invoke the Nameless One. So that is the section on spells. And it looks like it has at least one spell for just about all of the traditions. And then it goes into chapter 3, which talks about beastmen. Now, beastmen are a big part of the Shadow of the Demon Lord bestiary, and they are like maybe not the number one servant of the Demon Lord, but they're certainly a strong sect of the Demon Lord servants. So it gives you stats for variations of the beastmen that are found in the core rulebook, and it adds a couple, I believe. The bugbear is one of the new ones, and it's got a minotaur in here, which I think the minotaur is already in the core rulebook. The warg is in the core rulebook. Okay, so the bugbear is the only new one, but still, it gives variations and stats for those variations for each of the beastmen. Chapter 4 talks about demons, and this whole section just is dedicated on demons, summoning demons, what demonic possession entails, different powers for demons, how to create a demon by choosing first you have the basic demon stats, and then you've got the demon size and choosing different attributes, and you can just randomize every demon that you create for this game, which is really what you're supposed to be doing. Demons in Shadow of the Demon Lord are not like demons in D&D. Demons in D&D have a defined form as they exist in the Abyss. But in Shadow of the Demon Lord, demons come from the void, and in the void, they don't have material forms. They are a spiritual creature that only take physical form when they enter a material world. And so when they enter a material world, they draw from their surroundings to create a body, and they warp that body because the essence of the demon does that. It's a destructive, corrupting essence. So it takes the material, then builds a body from it, then warps it into something horrific. And so this helps you to build a demon if you really want to create a something really special that is unique to your game. Then this has rules on creating, the demon's form, the demon's attacks, and things like that. It gives you several tables for demonic talents. The core rulebook only has one table for demonic talents. This actually has 6 tables. Yeah, 6 tables. And then after that, it details what a demon prince is. So demons that are in the core rulebook, I think, only go up to like a size. Let me take a look here real quick. The demons in the core rulebook talk about demons up to a certain size, and these are demons that can get to huge size, which are difficulty 500. The demon princes are a couple cuts above the the most powerful demon that's in the core rulebook. So these represent like the most powerful demons in the game to this point in time in the game. They are difficulty 1000, and these do take a specific form when they materialize in the world. So it talks about 3 specific demon princes. The first one is the Destroyer of Worlds. The second one is the Failure in Flesh. And then the third one is the Lord of Undeath. And it gives the statistics for each, well, there's the basic statistics for a demon lord, and then of course you can modify it based on the specific demon prince that you are calling, that's being used in your game. Right off the bat, when a demon prince arrives upon the material world, it starts things off with a bang. So one of its traits is Ruinous Arrival. When a demon prince enters the world, everything within 3d6 miles of the spot where it arrives takes 3d6 plus 10 damage. A creature can make a strength challenge roll with 3 banes to take half damage on a success. In addition, each creature within range gains 2d6 insanity and must get a success on a will challenge roll or gain 2d6 extra insanity. That's just the demon prince arriving. Then, after he arrives, he just starts destroying everything, or it just starts destroying everything. So, nasty, nasty creatures detailed in this book. Wonderful book. I love this book. Chapter 5 goes into the history of the story of creation. Well, it actually goes into the story of creation from start to present day. And it probably gives a lot more information than your players need to know initially anyway. But I want my players to know eventually. And so it really just talks about how everything came to be, what the Demon Lord is, and why its goal is to destroy everything. So that's an excellent read. And again, it just puts everything into perspective once you read that section. Then we go into Denizens of the Void, which gives a couple more monsters. Well, it gives one anyway. Talks about demons and shadows. Then it talks about exploring the void. Well, the Denizens of the Void is part of the exploring the void. So the void is a place that you can actually go to. You don't really want to stay there very long, but you could theoretically have high level adventures in there. But it talks about how you can explore the void, what the consequences of being in the void are, insanity, madness, what the environment has, darkness, gravity, and corrupting influence. All that stuff affects you when you are in the void. Then it talks about the denizens of the void, the demons, the shadows, explorers, and survivors. And then it talks about what is in the void. So there void is kind of a misnomer. There are things in the void. So it's not completely a void. There are islands in the void, which are like mini worlds, and they're just kind of floating in the void. This details some potential islands, and it gives you a way to create your own islands, which is pretty cool. And then it talks about a new type of character, which is an incarnation. And this would be a new type of ancestry. An incarnation is kind of like an angel. It is a spirit that possesses a mortal for a specific purpose. So it comes to the world as a spirit of the remnant of a genie. And genies are the world's protectors. And so, or they started off as the world's protectors before they went batshit crazy. And the ones that form the barrier that separate the material world and multiverse from the void are still the protectors of everything they created. And so whenever they sense that something has gone wrong that needs to be corrected, they send one of their essences into the material world to try to pinpoint the wrongness and to fix it or destroy it or whatever. And that's what an incarnation is. An incarnation possesses a mortal and does so for a specific purpose and for a specific period of time. And details how to create an incarnation character, which is actually a pretty cool concept. Probably pretty difficult. So you wouldn't want a new player to run an incarnation. This would be something that I would only allow a seasoned player to run. Okay, and that's pretty much it. So that is Hunger in the Void. That is why this is my number 3 pick. Probably my favorite book in all of the Demon Lord library to this point. If for no other reason, it's an excellent read. All right, book number 4, again, might raise some eyebrows, and rightfully so, because this isn't a book that you really need initially to start a Demon Lord campaign. But if you're a GM like me, I like to tinker with rules. And there's no role-playing game out there that is built perfectly to satisfy my desire for the perfect RPG for me and my game group. So anytime an RPG provides alternative rules, I eat that shit up, because it gives me ideas on how I can tinker with the game system. And the book that does that for Shadow of the Demon Lord is Forbidden Rules. Now, Forbidden Rules is also on DriveThruRPG, and looks like so. Now, this book provides all kinds of alternative rules that were play tested by Robert Schwalb and his playtest group, but were ultimately discarded because they didn't either fit the concept that Schwalb had for the game, or they were too clunky, or they didn't mesh well with other rules that he'd kept in the game. So he threw all these alternative rules into a book, and he published it with the caution that you shouldn't throw everything in this book into your campaign, because it's going to break some things. And so these are only here so that you can play with the ones that you like. Maybe interject 1 or 2 variant rules from this rule book to enhance your game, or to modify it slightly so that it fits more of the idea of the game that you want, that sort of thing. But again, this is just the type of crap that I love when RPGs do this. Even Dungeons and Dragons produces Unearthed Arcana, which provides alternate rules that eventually may become rules, or may be discarded, just depending on where they decide to take the game. I loved it. I love that stuff for D&D, and I love this book for Shadow of the Demon Lord. So this includes a lot of different variant rules, way too many for me to talk about on this video. But it has things such as using consistent damage, static boons and banes, running the game with no attack rolls, having players make all the rolls. So instead of the GM running the monsters and the players only rolling for their characters, the players would be responsible for making a defense roll whenever the monster attacks them, and that would represent the monster's attack. Kind of like how the Cypher system works, if any of you are familiar with Numenera and the Cypher system. All right, so this book also goes into some critical success and failure tables, if you're into that sort of thing. It talks about corruption some more, gives you some more marks of darkness. Talks about a variation on fortune points. And it also talks about damage-reducing armor. Now, damage-reducing armor is something that I've always favored in an RPG, simply because I don't like how most RPGs like Dungeons and Dragons and Shadow of the Demon Lord use armor to make it harder to be hit. Armor really doesn't make it harder for you to be hit. Wearing armor actually makes it easier for you to be hit. It makes it harder for you to be hurt. And it does that by absorbing damage from a hit. So armor really should reduce damage. But the problem with damage reducing armor is it doesn't scale very well. So this gives you one way of using damage reducing armor if you're into that sort of thing. And it tells you how to convert things if you're planning on using that rule variant. There's a way to simplify death and dying. There's variant healing if you want to make healing more difficult or easier. Talks about a variation on social combat, which is part of the core rules that I haven't really gotten into. I don't dig social combat. I prefer my players role play their characters. Anyway, there's variant social combat rules in here. There's also variant combat rules, talking about things like team initiative, and individual initiative. Let's see what else. New actions. So the new actions would be things like goading an opponent, isolating an opponent, overbearing an opponent, having a step action, tumble and wrestle. There's also abstract combat, which talks about zones, establishing zones for movement, and how that works for melee and ranged attacks. And there's a section on chases, which is actually pretty good. If you want to build a chase scene into your game, this book gives you a way of doing that. Let me see what else. This book is just full of all kinds of excellent alternative rules. There's a new path in here, the Adept, which is kind of a user of magic that doesn't gain magic from study and practice. Rather, it comes to them inherently, kind of like a sorcerer in D&D. So the Adept is in here, which actually I'm not even sure why this didn't make even the Demon Lord's Companion, because this is a fully functional path, novice path. So you could throw it in your game right now, and it would work just perfectly fine. Okay, what else? Simplified armor, simplified weapons, magic points, power points. A lot of people don't like magic systems. They like to tinker with magic systems, and this gives you a way of doing that with using the variant of power points instead of castings. What else? Yes, I forgot. A great section of this book, downtime. This gives you a number of downtime tables that you can use in between adventures to figure out, what your characters or what your player characters did in between, level 3 and 4. Let's say you had a couple of months off between the last adventure and the next adventure. What happened during that downtime? There's a number of tables that you can roll on to see what happened. It goes anything from you were murdered to you had a major windfall, and a whole spectrum in between those two extremes. So great section. And then the last section, which again is excellent, if you want to take your game beyond 10th level, which of course, the core rules only take you to 10th level. But if you want to expand beyond the 10th level, it gives you a new tier, which is the Paragon tier. And it talks about how you can, your characters can gain abilities as they get to a level 11 and higher. So that's why I suggest the Forbidden Rules as my number 4 book. The number 5 and the last book I'm going to say is core essential book. Tales of the Demon Lord. Now I already hear a lot of you shouting out in anger and frustration, and tears are coming to your eyes because you're disagreeing fervently with my choice for Tales of the Demon Lord. However, I stand behind this because this is the first book of that details a full campaign from the starting tier to the master tier. And not only that, but it in it entails adventures that give you a great range of different adventures, different monsters to fight, different NPCs to interact with, and a setting in the Northern Reach, and details the various places that the adventures take you in the Northern Reach. And this is just a great campaign that takes a lot of work to make work. And that's the main complaint that I get, that I read a lot from people that have run this campaign, is that it takes a lot of work to make it work. And that is a very true statement. This is not an easy campaign. You can't just pick this campaign up and start running it. You have to figure out how you're going to connect the various. Let me get the picture. You have to figure out how to connect the various adventures that are in this campaign, in this adventure path, I guess is the appropriate term. Here we go. All right, so Tales of the Demon Lord. You have to read this whole book, and then you have to figure out how you're going to connect these adventures, how much you're going to use the main story behind these adventures and this campaign to get from point A to point Z. And that's why I say it takes a lot of work. So this is not a campaign that a starting GM would want to run. Now, a GM that's experienced but is just now starting on Shadow of the Demon Lord, yeah, you can tackle it, because this was actually the first campaign that I ran, and I didn't realize how much work it would take until I actually started running it and getting into it. And that's when I realized, holy shit, I need to figure out how to link these things together. And there are ways to do it. There's tons of NPCs in here that you can use as quest givers, and that is the best way that you can link these adventures together, by using the quest givers. And the quest givers are detailed. The NPCs are detailed. Talks about their role in the campaign, and it's an excellent way for you to take those NPCs and use them to get this adventure going from adventure to adventure in a smooth and logical manner. Now, this adventure path is, like I said, it gives you an adventure for each level. What I found is that some of the adventures in here are so out in left field from what I was trying to do with the campaign that I instead interjected my own adventure and replaced the adventure in the book with my own adventure. But the reason I did that is because I didn't take my own advice and read through this and figure out how to connect the adventures together before I started running it. So I would finish an adventure and then realize I didn't have any idea how to get them from that adventure to the next adventure. And so I, made up my own, which is perfectly fine. The core campaign really is highlighted in about 3 or 4 adventures in this book. So you could actually just take those 3 or 4 adventures and use those as the core story for the campaign. And then the rest of the adventures are really just to have your players experience the game and experience the various rules of the game. That's what those different adventures are designed to do. but they don't really fit well with the campaign story that's presented in this book. So you have to make that connection. You have to make that fit. And again, you do that by utilizing the NPCs that are provided in the book. I didn't know that going into this. So I took the easy way out and just substituted an adventure that I was comfortable with for an adventure in here that I was not comfortable with. Now, if I had to do this again, and I actually plan to run this again at some point with a different group, I'm going to run it as written. I'm just going to do a better job of connecting all the adventures in this book the way that makes sense to me. Now, the other thing that I found in this book is if you are trying to run this game, if you're trying to run Shadow of the Demon Lord by running it one level per session, you're going to find that some of these adventures are pretty long. So you're going to have difficulty fitting some of these adventures into one session, unless your session is like, stupidly long. Some of these took me like 3 or 4 sessions to get through one adventure, namely the Curious Case of the Errant Swine. The reason for that is because there are 1, 2, 3, 4 different adventure sites just in this one adventure. And most of them play a role, or actually all of them play a role in this adventure. So it's kind of tough to get 4 different adventure sites into one session. So just a word of warning, if you actually are trying to play Shadow of the Demon Lord in 11 sessions, you're going to have to cut a lot of shit out in order to make that work in some of these adventures. Okay, so anyway, I plan on going through Tales of the Demon Lord in a future video, not too far off, in greater detail, because this is a wonderful, wonderful adventure path, and I am going to give it the attention and the time that it deserves in a future video. But for now, I do add it as my number 5 and my final entry in the Demon Lord. Or actually, there is one more entry. I lied. I have 6. Well, I can count. Since this is number 5, so I have one more entry in my essentials. And that is, let me see if I can find it in DriveThruRPG. There it is. Uncertain Faith. Okay, so why Uncertain Faith? As the Hunger in the Void is, in my opinion, essential for the running a campaign and understanding how the Void and the Demon Lord, what role they take in the campaign. The Uncertain Faith book details the various religions in the campaign world, and there are a lot. This goes into a good amount of detail, talking about each one of those religions, where they're practiced, who practices them, and what the role of that religion is in society. It goes everywhere from the cult of the new god to the dark gods to just the one-off gods that are worshipped in very specific places, like I think his name is One-Eyed Jack, is a pirate god or something like that. So Uncertain Faith is my number 6 essential, simply because religion is a huge part of the campaign, of any campaign really, especially if you have a player character that is a priest. They're going to need a religion, and this book gives the DM plenty of information and plenty of ammunition to use in their campaign for using the various faiths as both things to support the player characters and also things to use against them. So that is my 6th entry in the Demon Lord Essentials. And with that, I'm going to go ahead and wrap it up. I think there are plenty more books I could talk about. And there are many, many, many other books that I would also recommend that you purchase after you get the essentials. But that's a discussion for another day. So with that, let me go ahead and let you all go. Thanks for watching my video. Once again, if you like what you saw, please show that in YouTube by liking my video and leaving a comment if you'd like to discuss anything I talked about further. If you want to disagree with me completely about how horrible the Tales of the Demon Lord is, feel free to do that. Or if there is a book such as occult philosophy that trumps another book that is in my core 6, then feel free to put that in the comments section and to argue your case. You'll be wrong, but feel free to argue. It's free, so you're allowed to do that. But anyway, with that, let me go ahead and wrap things up. And once again, hail to the Demon Lord, and thank you all for watching. Have a great what is it? Spring. Yeah, spring. Later.